I'm 32 years old, and for 4 years my family treated me like I'd already died and they were just waiting on the paperwork to make it official. I need to start at the table. Sunday dinner at my parents' house in Louisville, third week of October. I'd gotten the call that Friday, a senior strategist role at a marketing firm in Nashville, a real title, a real salary, the kind of offer you grind 6 years to earn. I sat down at that table with it buzzing inside me like something I had to say before I burst. Mom had made pot roast. Dad was half watching the Bengals pregame on the living room TV with the volume low enough to be technically polite, but loud enough that you knew where his head was. My brother Trent was on his phone, showing Mom his latest Instagram reel, a video of him turning a piece of walnut into a floating shelf for some client in Cincinnati. It was beautiful work. He had real talent. The problem was never that. I cleared my throat. I got offered a job. Mom looked up for maybe half a second. Oh? Senior strategist position. At a firm in Nashville. It's a significant move. I've been working towards something like this for. Trent, show your father that reel, she said, already turning back to the phone screen. Gary, come look at this. Dad shuffled in from the doorway, still holding his drink. He watched the shelf video, he said. That's real craftsmanship, son. I sat there with the words still in my mouth, going cold. After dinner, my Aunt Patrice, my dad's older sister, the one who'd always been too direct for holiday small talk, pulled me aside in the hallway by the coat closet. She was wearing the same expression she got when she'd been sitting on something too long and finally decided to put it down. You had something big to share tonight, she said, not a question. Job offer, Nashville. She nodded slowly. And how'd that land? I didn't answer. She could see the answer. She squeezed my shoulder once. They've made their pick, honey. That doesn't have to be the end of your story. It just means you write the next chapter somewhere else. I packed a single carload that week, left my spare key on the kitchen counter, and sent a text saying I was taking the Nashville position and would be gone by Thursday. My mom replied, "Okay. Let us know when you get there." I got there. I didn't let them know. Within 48 hours, I was removed from the family group chat. Not by accident. Trent had admin access and had just added his girlfriend. There was room for one more person. It wasn't me. I noticed it on a Tuesday morning and I sat with the feeling for a while, and then I put my phone down and went to work. I want to be honest. The first few months, I checked my phone more than I should have, not hoping for anything significant, just something. A text on a Sunday, a voice memo from someone I recognized. Nothing came. My birthday arrived in March and I celebrated alone at a Thai place 3 blocks from my apartment with a glass of wine and a library book. No call, no text from anyone in that house. I didn't post about it. I didn't want the sympathy of strangers to fill a gap that specific. Aunt Patrice messaged me every Sunday at almost exactly 9 in the morning. 2 words, still standing. I'd reply with whatever was true. Sometimes 1 sentence, sometimes just yes. She never pushed. She never mentioned Louisville. There was something in that restraint that felt more generous than most people's grand gestures. The job was good. I was good at it, which was maybe why it stung as much as it did, that no one at that dinner table had ever once asked what I actually did with my days. My firm handled marketing for regional hospitality brands, hotels, restaurant groups, a couple of wellness chains spreading across the Southeast. I wrote positioning strategy, managed brand rollouts, sat in rooms with clients who paid serious money to hear how their business should talk about itself. I was sharp at it. I'd always been sharp at it. I just hadn't had anyone who noticed in a while. By the end of year 1, I was running 4 client campaigns independently with minimal oversight. My manager noticed before I said a word. I was bumped to department head. with a salary adjustment that made my Louisville paycheck look like a draft. I texted Aunt Patrice. Got the title. She replied, told you. Now get some sleep. I started taking freelance clients on nights and weekends, mostly small businesses, a bakery trying to expand to a second location, a real estate agent whose online presence looked like it was designed in 2011, a couple of boutique fitness studios that had a great product and no idea how to tell anyone about it. What surprised me was how much I preferred that work. When I was choosing the client and setting the terms and delivering something that had my name on it without a corporate layer over the top, it felt different. It felt like mine. Year 2, I made the decision that scared me more than leaving home had. I quit the firm. I incorporated an LLC, Meridian Creative, and I committed fully. I had 7 clients confirmed, a desk at a co-working space off Gallatin Avenue in East Nashville, and a savings cushion that would last 9 months if I burned through it with nothing coming in. I ran the numbers twice a week. I didn't tell my parents. There was no one to tell. Aunt Patrice's texts shifted after that. She started asking specific questions. Not how's the business, but did that restaurant group launch their summer campaign yet? She remembered what I'd told her 3 weeks ago. She connected dots. She listened like someone who understood that the details were the point. I didn't realize until then how long it had been since someone had listened to me like that. Year 3. Meridian Creative landed a contract with a boutique hotel group expanding into Charlotte, Chattanooga, and Savannah. It was the largest account I'd ever run. I hired 2 full-time employees and brought in 2 contractors to cover the overflow. Revenue crossed 6 figures and kept moving. I cried in my car in a parking garage off Broadway for approximately 4 minutes, and then I drove home and made pasta from a box because I hadn't had time to grocery shop properly in 2 weeks. And that's what winning actually looks like most of the time. That spring, I bought the house. A 1920s Victorian in the Germantown neighborhood, a foreclosure sale priced at $340,000, which in that market was almost absurdly fair if you were willing to put in work. I was willing. I spent 6 months of weekends stripping old wallpaper, refinishing original hardwood floors, sourcing light fixtures from salvage shops, choosing paint colors with the same taste I brought to brand identities for clients worth 10 times what I was charging. I hired a contractor for the structural and plumbing work. I did everything else myself. My hands were wrecked most of that winter. I didn't mind. By year 4, I had 8 people at Meridian, a client list that had started to develop a wait list, and a house that had turned into something I was genuinely proud to walk into at the end of a long day. A writer at Nashville Lifestyles reached out through the agency's contact page. She was putting together a feature on creative professionals who live according to their aesthetic. How the spaces people build reflect their professional philosophy. She wanted to photograph the house. I said yes, mostly because Denise, my operations director, the woman who holds everything together when I'm in back-to-back client calls, told me the visibility would be good for the agency, and she was usually right. The feature ran in the spring issue. Denise shared the digital version on LinkedIn and tagged Meridian Creative in the caption. The post moved quickly through the network. A few hundred likes, some shares, comments from people in the Nashville business community I knew, and some I didn't. I didn't think much about it. I was deep in a pitch deck for a potential new client and running behind on 2 deliverables, and the post felt like someone else's news. I didn't think much about it until Aunt Patrice texted me on a Tuesday afternoon. Your mother was on your LinkedIn profile for close to an hour this morning. Just want you to be ready then. A few minutes later. Not telling you to panic. Just telling you so you're not surprised. I saved the text. I thought about what ready might mean, and I made an appointment that week with Neil, an attorney a colleague had recommended, focused on small business and personal asset protection. I'd been meaning to have the conversation for 6 months anyway. He walked me through transferring the house title into a separate personal trust, reviewed the LLC structure, closed two gaps I hadn't known were there. He also explained, calmly and without drama, what documented harassment looked like in a legal context and what steps I could take if it became relevant. I took notes. I implemented everything within the week. Thursday morning, an unsaved number texted me. I saw the preview before I could stop myself. "This is your father. We saw the article in." I put my phone face down on my desk. I read the full message after my noon call. He'd written, with careful formality, "We saw the Nashville Lifestyles article. The house looks beautiful. You look well. I think it's time we talked. Please call when you're able." Polished. Measured. Like texting a distant colleague rather than a daughter he hadn't spoken to in 4 years. I didn't call. Friday, Trent messaged me on Instagram. We'd never unfollowed each other. It had just gone quiet between us the way it does when two people stop showing up in the same rooms. His message said, "Hey sis, the house is genuinely amazing. I'm proud of you, I really am. Dad says you're doing really well down there." I read it 3 times, trying to locate the feeling it gave me. I showed the screenshot to Aunt Patrice over the phone that evening. She was quiet for a moment. "Notice anything?" "He says he's proud of me, but Dad is the one who told him I was doing well." Right. Like they've been monitoring from a distance. Not someone in your life, someone they've been tracking. She paused. "There will be a second message." The second message from Trent came Sunday. "I don't want to put you on the spot, but I could use some advice when you have time. Could we talk this week?" Monday, my father sent an email with the subject line, "Family." He and my mother had always wanted to see Nashville, he wrote. They'd love to visit. Could they come the following weekend? He mentioned almost as an aside that Trent would probably come along. There was no acknowledgement of the silence. No explanation of the 4 years, just, could they come? I called Aunt Patrice. "Don't say yes and don't say no," she told me. "You don't owe them a soft landing. Let them arrive at the actual ask themselves." I did not reply to the email. They came anyway. I was on my front porch with a mug of coffee on a Saturday morning when I heard the car, a rental, gray Tennessee plates from the airport. It pulled to the curb in front of my house and all 3 of them climbed out. My father in the blue button-down he wore when he wanted to signal that he was making an effort. My mother with her handbag pressed against her chest like a shield she'd decided to carry. Trent in the back, rolling a duffel bag on the sidewalk, studying the house's exterior with an expression I couldn't completely read. I stayed on the porch. I didn't go down the steps. My father lifted a hand in a wave like we'd made plans. "There she is." I set my mug on the railing. "I didn't tell you to come." My mother's face shifted. "Honey, we wanted to surprise you. We're your family." "You've been my family for 4 years without making a sound," I said. "What changed?" My father walked up the front path, stopping at the base of the steps. "We want to fix things. We saw how well you're doing and we thought it was time to." "To what?" I said. "Say exactly what." Nobody spoke for a moment. Trent said, "Can we go inside? It's already warm out here." I looked at him for a second. Then I stepped aside and held the door open. They filed through. My mother's fingers grazed the doorframe. My father made a low sound when he saw the foyer. The original black and white hex tile I'd spent 3 weekends restoring until it looked like the day it was laid. Trent moved through slowly, taking everything in. I led them to the kitchen. I stayed standing. I didn't offer coffee. My father built up to it the way he always did, with enough preamble that you couldn't call him blunt about it, but not enough that you could call him honest either. Trent's woodworking business was in trouble. His primary suppliers in North Carolina had pulled his credit line after 2 late invoices, a cash flow problem that had compounded. He needed $38,000 to clear the outstanding balance and restore his standing before the fall season, which was when 80% of his annual revenue came in. He'd spoken to his bank. His credit history, which included a default from several years prior, was making it difficult. He was asking me. Just a loan, Trent said. With terms, I'd pay it back. I have a clear plan. My mother reached across the counter toward my hand. He's worked so hard for this. And you're clearly in a very strong position. It wouldn't even register for you the way it would for. The way it would for who? I said. She stopped. I looked at my father. I thought about everything I wanted to say, and then I chose to say all of it. You want to talk about family, I said. Let me tell you what I know about family. I set both hands flat on the counter. Year 1. I turned 27 in March. I mailed a card to the house 2 weeks early so it would get there in time. I waited. Nothing came back. Not a call, not a text. You posted a video of Trent's new workshop the same week. Dad, you captioned it, so proud of this kid. I saved the screenshot. I still don't know exactly why I saved it. My mother's expression shifted, but she didn't speak. Year 2. I made department head at my firm. I called on a Wednesday evening to share the news. You said, "That's nice. Is it a big raise?" And then asked me to pass Trent's Instagram to anyone at my office who might want custom furniture. I said I would. I hung up. I didn't call again after that. Trent looked at the table. Year 3. I incorporated my own company. I sent an email to the family address. The same one you've had since before I left for college, with the name of the agency, what I was building, what I hoped it would become. I kept it brief. I wanted you to know. I could see the email had been opened. Nobody replied. That same spring, I found out you co-signed a $22,000 equipment loan for Trent. I found out from Aunt Patrice by accident in a phone call about something else entirely. My father's jaw tightened. Year 4. A magazine publishes my house and my story. You find my LinkedIn profile within 48 hours. My father thanked me for the first time in 4 years. I stepped back from the counter. You didn't lose track of me. You knew exactly where I was. You just decided I wasn't worth the effort until I had something you needed. Trent said, "That's not what this is, that's not. We got caught up in things. It wasn't some deliberate decision to." I'm not here to debate the intent, I said. I'm here to tell you the answer is no. I'm not lending Trent $38,000. I'm not lending anyone in this room a single dollar, and I need you to leave now. My mother stood up. Her voice dropped to something tight and quiet. If his business closes, that damage doesn't just fall on him. You could stop it. You have the means to stop it, and you're choosing not to. Yes, I said, I am. My father tried one more time. He used the voice he pulled out when he needed to sound like the reasonable party. Measured, almost gentle, calibrated to make me feel like I was being irrational for not agreeing. We gave you everything we could. You can't just close the door on the people who raised you because of a rough few years and some hurt feelings. You gave me what was left over after everything was accounted for, I said, and I made something real out of it anyway. Now I need you to go. Trent stood up last. He looked at me for a long moment. You really cannot let anything go, can you? I let go of everything, I said. That's the only reason I'm standing in this kitchen instead of the one in Louisville. I walked to the front door and opened it. They filed out. My father paused at the bottom of the porch steps and turned back like he had one more thing. I looked at him steadily until he didn't. The rental car pulled away from the curb. I went back inside. I stood in my kitchen for a while, the one with the restored tile and the windows I'd reglazed by hand and the light that came through just right on a morning like this. Then I called Aunt Patrice. They came, I said. I know. Your dad posted an old throwback photo at 7 a.m. He does that when he's working something out in his head. She waited. You okay? Yeah. What did they want? $38,000 for Trent's supplier debt. She made a sound that was almost a laugh and entirely wasn't. And you said? No, and I asked them to leave. Good. Her voice was steady and certain and plain. You protected yourself. That's not cruelty. That's just finally putting yourself on the list. The messages kept coming for the next 10 days. 2 emails from my mother with the subject line, "Please reconsider." I archived both without replying. My father tried calling from a different number on a Tuesday evening. I let it roll to voicemail and deleted the recording without listening. Trent sent a long message on Instagram that I read once and then buried. He'd written, "You'll regret this near the end." I noted it and moved forward. I forwarded everything to Neil. He sent a cease and desist letter on my behalf the following week. After that, it went quiet. The quiet that followed felt nothing like the 4 years before. That silence had been weighted, the kind that accumulates from waiting for something that keeps not arriving. This silence was just silence, clear and even and without mass. I could breathe in it without bracing for anything. About 6 weeks later, Aunt Patrice called me on a Sunday morning at her usual time. She had news. Trent's suppliers had moved to collect the equipment, the CNC router, the specialty saws, the inventory of exotic hardwoods he'd spent years sourcing, had been seized and sold at auction. His workshop lease was terminated. He'd filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The business was finished. What hadn't been fully disclosed to me, or apparently made entirely clear to my parents when they agreed to it, was that my father had co-signed Trent's final supplier agreement, $28,000 of personal liability. When Trent defaulted, that debt landed on my parents. They'd drained the emergency savings account they'd kept since I was a child. They were working out a payment arrangement with the creditor. I listened to all of it with my coffee going cold in my hand. Aunt Patrice said, "I'm not telling you this so you feel responsible. I'm telling you so you have the whole picture." "I know," I said. "Do you feel anything?" I thought about it for a real moment before I answered. "I feel sad that it went this way, not guilty. I feel sad, but I don't feel like I owe an apology." "That's exactly the right answer," she said quietly. "That's how you know." She came to Nashville the following month. We sat on the front porch of the Victorian on a Friday evening in the last of the day's warm light. She had her shoes off and her feet propped on the railing, something she'd never have done at my parents' house. And she looked at the neighborhood, the old trees and the brick facades, and the couple walking a retriever down the block, and she said, "You made this. The house, or all of it," she said. She gestured at the street, then at me, then vaguely in the direction of the agency's office a few blocks north. "Nobody handed you the blueprint. Nobody even told you the address. You just kept building until you found it." I thought about the kitchen table in Louisville, the walnut shelf video, the sound of sports commentary from the other room while I tried to say something that mattered. "I used to think," I said, "that if I did something big enough, impressive enough, they'd finally look up. And now I think I built all of this bigger because nobody was watching. The pressure of needing their approval would have made me smaller." I looked at the street. "So in a way, I suppose I should thank them." Aunt Patrice snorted. "Don't go that far." I laughed, and it was real. and the evening light held. Here is what I know now. There is a specific kind of attention that only arrives after you have something worth taking. It disguises itself as love, as concern, as family, reunion energy. It shows up in button-down shirts and rental cars and carefully written emails with single-word subject lines. It knows how to look exactly like the thing you needed a decade ago. But it isn't that thing. It has never been that thing. The people who matter are the ones who texted, "still standing," when you had nothing to show for yourself. The ones who asked the specific questions, who remembered the details, who showed up without a reason. Blood is a starting point. It is not a contract. You don't owe anyone a seat at the table you built from nothing just because they share your last name. I choose who comes through my front door now, and I choose who I call family. Those are two completely different lists. Making peace with that gap, that's the whole work.